Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to work. I'm David DeLallo, and I am here with a pretty full house today of our analysts. We'll be talking Gen AI news as usual. Of course, news cycle is always a little slow over the weekend, but we have a bunch of articles today, and it looks like we're mainly going to be talking about the big tech players today: Meta, Google, NVIDIA, and there was one other, OpenAI. We've got all the big players today. A little bit of news there. We're going to have Ankaj kicking us off on each article as usual, and we will rate it as essential, important, or optional for the AI leader to tune into. Okay, without further ado, Ankaj, kick us off.
Thanks, David. So the first one that we have for today comes from VentureBeat and is written by Michael Nunes and talks about NVIDIA's Nemotron 4, the 340 billion parameters model, which is keen to redefine synthetic data generation and is a rival to GPT-4.
All right, thank you. It's very, very hypey tone in the writing of this one. I tried to ignore that and focus on the news. Adam, what did you think?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I was on the fence between optional and important actually. I think just felt like it's a little early to be so applicable to the AI leader, but the more I thought about it, I am giving it an important rating for a couple reasons. One is because the level of performance, but more and more models we're seeing out there are starting to reach that level. It is an open model. I'm not sure to what extent it's open source, but what is significant is that it produces synthetic data, which means there are lots of places where the privacy of information is important, and industry is going to be able to train models based on things other than their actual information because they can produce this synthetic data. And that's a big deal. And almost more importantly is that it has really commercial friendly licensing. So it's open and available for anyone to use without restrictions on sort of the ownership of what they might build from that. So I think it's significant. It's a big step forward for enterprise to start thinking more about how they can apply this sort of technology to fine tune and deploy their own models. So I gave it an important rating.
All right. Yeah, I was a little confused. It focused a lot on the synthetic data generation, but then it's saying it rivals GPT-4. So I was a little confused as to, is it completely general purpose like a GPT-4, or does it have a specific lane here where it's meant to solely generate data? I don't know if anybody understood that. I tried to look it up and on their websites, but it seemed like a lot of people weren't really talking about it.
Yeah, I understood it that it's full model, that it has three components, essentially train, fine tune, and then release. So it has the full spectrum, I thought, and but focused on synthetic data, I believe. This is important. However, at the end of the article, it says, well, look, synthetic data is very useful because we absolutely need it, but we haven't worked with it for too long, and we don't know how much stuff it generates that is not quite right, and it can propagate. So that is why I rated it as important, but not essential.
All right. Any other ratings? We've got two importance.
Yeah, I could go for important. I was even thinking about essential. I sent it off to one of our private equity clients this morning because, private equity is looking to create value, and a lot of times they might own a business and not have the data they need to do the kind of models they'd like to do. So I think it's from the market leader. So I almost rated it essential as well. I mean, it was from, Joe Schmo's, technology company, but this is NVIDIA. I mean, whatever. Definitely important for me.
All right. We've got three importance. We'll sit it there. Important. Ankaj, let's take the next one.
Yeah, actually, David, back here, a quick question on GPT-4. GPT-4 generates synthetic data, which is where I think they were talking about. That was the comparison.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
This was an interesting development.
Yeah. So the next one is a TechCrunch article authored by Devin Coldway, and it talks about how former NSA head has joined OpenAI's board and safety committee.
Yes, I slipped this one into the comic this week as the news broke at the end here. Interesting development. John, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think this is essential. Goodbye Fourth Amendment. Here we've got that, somebody way up in the NSA whose motto is collect everything. And it's been, ever since, Bush 43 and Obama made it worse, they've been trampling over our privacy rights. I think it's essential that people understand that there's no governance, there's no controls on what these people are going to collect. I do not trust this at all. I think it's really bad news for liberty, but outrage is essential.
All right. Any other thoughts?
Well, thing I would add is, a year and a half ago, Sam Altman, one of these conferences I attended, talked about how he saw the world evolving to every country would have its own LLM, which is at the time sounded really bizarre. But I think if you think of if digital intelligence is like oil and becomes strategically important, this is really leaning towards a U.S. centric view in some eyes. It may really help a Mistral over in Europe and a Chinese open source open model as well. So I think clearly essential.
Yeah, look, the power of these models to do. I mean, if you've ever worked with these models, the combination of the social models and individual prediction models, they are incredibly powerful. And we can get to a point of the Bureau of Pre-Crime, like in Minority Report, but it won't be a bunch of people sitting in soup, having visions. It'll be statistical models. And it's gonna anyway. Their motto at the NSA is collect everything. I mean, that's nuts. Sorry.
Yes.
Well, and I think also for John, and I'm sure they're happy to sign a $100 million, $500 million, billion-year contract with OpenAI as well. So it's really going to help them juice their $3.5 billion revenue stream.
Yeah. The other thing is, I talked to a friend of mine who worked for one of the major telecommunications companies that remained unnamed. And the reason antitrust didn't go after them is that they were completely hand in glove with the intelligence agencies, allowing metadata to be collected on international phone calls. And that's bad for the end consumer too. So I think some of the slow going on antitrust has to do with the surveillance abilities that these large technology companies enable our government to have. And I don't like any part of that.
Yeah, John and Paul, I don't like it either. But how do you think we rate it essential, and I agree. But do you think there's an out of it? Do you think we have some grace someplace?
Well, one thing I do know is that we do nothing. The answer is no.
Yeah, I do. I think on the experiment brainstorm side, there may be something around Llama 3, maybe IBM. I mean, who's the open source, more data liberty lane over there? But
yeah, I think as we get into cognition, which we're doing, we've already given up behavior, and we've already given up social networks as property of the state, right? Without search or seizure. I mean, they don't need a subpoena to go get that. Now we're going to do cognition. Come on, can't we start pushing back? Give me a break.
John, for the rest of us, explain what do you mean by we've given up behavior already? What does that mean?
Look, when you do metadata and you do social networks, which they monitor on a regular basis, and they don't need any probable cause to do, you can define somebody's role in a social group and their behavior. And if you look at the actual data, it's amazing, how why do you think, these ad companies, why do you think, 2/3 of ads have gone to non-linear media? It's because the models are so good at predicting behavior. Well, the government has even better models, and they don't need a subpoena to go profile John Sviocla. Thank you very much. I don't like any part of it. They don't even know. They don't even need to go to they don't even need to go to a secret court anymore. They don't. And if they start telling me I'm being investigated, I can't talk about it. It's a felony for me to talk about me being investigated. Forget it. I'm sorry. This has gone too far.
Yeah, I don't like this either, but I do have to say we are speculating, right, on what's going to happen here. We don't know that for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, hang on, wait. What John was talking about was stuff that's already happened.
No, I know. I'm just saying for this piece, because I was going to close this out.
No. I'm saying for this piece. Look. Sure, the man may act in a more independent way. To put the head of the most powerful surveillance agency in the world on the safety committee as an indicator that they're trying to make things safer for us, my goodness, that is completely, in my opinion, unbalanced.
It's insane. Yeah, it's sort of insane. Former NSA. The signal is there, right? We know the signal is there that, like, hey, government, we said we're ready to work with you, and now we're really ready to work with you. But they're saying the signal is something different. I totally agree with you, John, what they're really going to do, but I was just throwing in there that we are speculating. So that what we will.
If you want different points of view, put Lawrence Lessig on there in addition to this gun. Okay, put somebody there who actually has been fighting for digital liberty in addition to this gun.
It's a great point.
It's a great idea. Should share it.
I agree. This was definitely a discouraging development, despite how they are trying to spin it.
But you know what? A lot of people who are not following, who are not thinking, would say this is a great development. They got the guy who knows things and put them in the security committee.
What I can't hold up is, on one hand, Congress is in the single digits, and faith in government has gone straight down since Eisenhower. And then people are happy about this? Come on.
Yeah, I hear you, John. All right, we're going with essential and egregiously ugly. On to the next one.
Say unbalanced.
Keep driving, David.
I just did,
Yep.
Paul. Here we go.
Okay, so the next one comes from The Verge, which is authored by Gaby Delval, and talks about how European regulators have ruined Meta's AI bot or halted its progress in Europe.
All right, Luda, crying over Europe here. What do you think?
I think it's optional in my view. So what has happened? Meta has been put on hold to put its AI agent out there. Came from Irish regulators who got a number of complaints that Meta is still using personal data, private data, and it's essentially on hold until this is cleared. Meta is trying to give people an out, but I think the article says it's a welcome hold for both parties to figure out how to proceed. I think it's optional.
Optional. Any votes for important or otherwise? Silence.
I was going to make the case important. It's one bright light. It's the only country that stood up to Meta. Anyway. Oh, we just want to suck up all your information and make models of you. You got any problem with that? Because otherwise your Facebook experience would be insufficient. Come on. At least, I was just glad to see somebody put their finger in the dike.
No, I agree with you, John. However, you know that it will be solved. A couple of months and they will figure out how to proceed. So it's like a temporary hold. But I agree, it's a good indicator that somebody is watching.
Okay, any other thoughts? We will go optional. Ankash, what do we have next? Where'd you go, Ankash?
Yes, I'm here, David. So the next one comes again from VentureBeat and is authored by Shubham Sharma, and it talks about a new startup called Jace, which has web-based AI agents that do more than just task-based AI agents.
All right, so now we're former Meta, and we have such a small raise here that they talked about in comparison to the billions that we keep seeing, right? 2.9 million that they've gotten put into this effort recently, but by Y Combinator backed here. What do you think, Adam?
I think this is optional news. So it can do tasks for you in your browser. It's not the first one to market. It won't be the last. This is also a product announcement. They haven't monetized this yet. It's not available to use. So it's a bit of a nothing burger in my opinion.
All right, we got a big O. Anybody else?
Yeah, it's optional. But reading this article, I was thinking of, yeah, we like agents, right? But do you do you really want that agent to go book the hotel and have your credit card and everything in it? I'm not sure. I don't think we're ready yet.
Yeah, I know. I go back and forth over this as well. It's I'd love to have some of those tasks taken off my plate, but it does make you a little bit nervous.
Yes.
See how they play out. All right, we'll
Yes.
go optional on this one unless anybody has any final thoughts.
I just want to note that if in the article they claim that it created a website and then got a first customer automatically, which is Ethan Mollick's new Turing test. His definition of a Turing test is a company that can do that. So anyway, I don't know if it can do it, but it can be kind of cool. I'm still optional.
Yeah, optional, but definitely one to watch, right? All right, let's go on to the next one. Kaj, please.
Okay, the next one is from Dominic Ponsford, and it talks about how the new Google AI Overviews functionality is having a devastating impact on publishers' visibility.
Yeah, it's a little experiment here done to check out what the actual ranking of a publisher will be when there's an overview up on the screen versus when there's not. John, what did you think about this?
I thought this is essential because it's not only going to hit the publishers that they're talking about, but anybody who is dealing with Google search. As we are talking about before, according to Marty Sorrell, the ex-chairman of WPP, 2/3 of the advertising spend is in nonlinear. Google has just under 84% of search, and I believe that's outside of China. And Bing has picked up about 6 or 8 points since its recent activities. They won't even share. Google will not share the data, which says to me that they're seeing that it is detrimental to advertisers, because if it was good for advertisers, they would share it. And back many years ago, when we taught, airline distribution cases, Sabre, Apollo, and so forth, and the power they've had in airlines, the behavior was 90% of all flights were booked off the first screen. The data showing here are similar. It's in the 80s. And so if you get below the fold, as they say, you get on the second screen, that is catastrophic to your click-through rates. It'd be my prediction, although, again, Google will not share the data. So I think that this is essential because anybody who is doing anything but search needs to understand the world is now upside down, or at least different.
All right, a passionate plea for essential. Any other thoughts on this one?
I'm certainly on essential as well. I think the thing that people need to understand here, what's happening. So Google News was curation of articles, right? This is moving the next level up, where you're actually curating and outsourcing of reporters and editorial and summary here. And if it does a good enough job with the model here, I don't know why anybody needs to click on a news link. Just get the summary here. And we've seen this in other areas. They've devastated the Yelp market because they went after reviews and everything else here. So I think this company is absolutely cornered in a prisoner's dilemma. They have to get more revenue, and if they crush the publishers, so be it.
So far, the summaries, honestly, they're only sporadically useful. So Google might shoot themselves in the foot by having them out there now when they're sometimes, as this article pointed out, like either completely inaccurate, they're insufficient. So maybe Google will end up screwing themselves up by having pushed this out a little bit too early. That seems like the only hope the publishers have, but probably
David, the big tell for me in here is that if you were a company interested in helping your customers, what you would do is you do an experiment with a number of the folks and you'd say, look, let's look at how this works. But they're not doing that. They're just rolling it out and they're holding the data. So that says to me, they think there's advantage for them. And, there's a lot of they should be broken up anyway because they have 84% market share, but that's another whole conversation. It's just their behavior. As my father used to say to me, watch what they do, not what they say.
David, I also vote for essential because we've had only one article calling attention to this humongous issue and with some data attached to it. So this says 85% will be pushed down and 95%. So the ad revenue will certainly be changed. Let's put it this way nicely. Yeah, so I'm agreeing with essential for sure.
All right, we've got essential across the board. I agree. Any other thoughts before we move on? All right.
Adam, you had it pretty low rated.
Oh, Adam. Oh, yeah. What'd you think here?
I don't know. It's all right. I mean, I get what you're all saying. I feel like we've talked a little about what's going on with search. We've already called out the essential trend of how things are shifting, and that this, especially without them producing the numbers behind it, it's a bunch of hyperbole. It's a bunch of speculation about what that means, and it's I consider it important to continue to highlight the trend of what's going on. But I didn't just maybe find this to be as impactful as you're all finding it to be.
All right. Well, we've got the majority essential, but appreciate your dissenting view as in the Supreme Court.
As an AI leader, what do I do with this? So, okay.
If you're part of your revenue, Adam, depends on the search, and
and we had essential news, I think, even just last week about if search is part of your revenue. I mean, we can keep hammering the point home, but I don't think we need to make it essential every time there more information about it comes to light. That's all.
Good point.
Fair argument. But I'm a Democratic moderator, so I'm going with the 3-1 weighting here, and we will go essential. Okay.
So David, you're opposite John's moderation.
I'm opposite John's. Every once in a while, I'll get really passionate, and I
am a Republican. David is a Democrat.
This is true.
I run a republic. Okay, it's a representative democracy, not a democracy.
There we go. Okay, last one of the day here.
Okay, so the last one comes from FT and is authored by Seb Murray, and it talks about how AI in finance is like moving from typewriters to word processors.
Okay, FT. I'll tell you, some of the articles coming out of there lately have me scratching my head in the quality camp. They're usually very reliable, but I feel like lately a couple of these are just kind of like head scratching to me. But that's my opinion. Ludo, what did you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree. This was not a long piece. It's optional. Nothing burger in Paul's lingo. It just essentially goes through and says, well, it will make a major dent because it can do certain tasks. Maybe Excel's will go away. And then it concludes saying, nah, maybe not. So it really is a very interesting way of presenting an issue. No data, but a lot of speculation. So optional for me.
All right, we've got an optional vote.
I agree with optional. And the one thing that stuck out to me was in law, we've had these cases where individuals are using it. And it says in there, using it as a game changer for tax research. I thought that was interesting. And I keep hearing those around me speaking about how Gen AI is helping so much in actual research. And I'm dead in the middle of my dissertation. And I'm like, you're trusting this thing fully with research? I don't know. It's just my opinion. So for me, yeah, I'm optional. And I thought that was a little interesting, to say the least.
All right. Couple of optionals. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, we will close this one out quickly. Great. All optionals. While we are getting our summary from Ankaj, Paul, Learning Lab tonight, did you want to share who's presenting?
Yes, thank you. Exciting Learning Lab tonight. It's Glenn Cove, who is a well-respected researcher and data scientist out of Harvard and Harvard Innovation Lab. He has a startup that's been really focused on selling solutions to enterprise. And tonight he's going to be walking through the major challenges he's been seeing in enterprise adoption of Gen AI for the last 12 months. So it's a topic that's been in the news a lot, and I think it will be a great setting for a robust discussion today.
All right, sounds good. And everybody, that is a free event to join as usual. So we will have the link in our newsletter for that. I don't know if anybody has it on here quickly to put up today. We probably should do that going forward. But we will go ahead and summarize. Look at us on a Monday with 2 essentials starting off the week. We've got the former NSA chief joining OpenAI. We heard an impassioned plea from John to stop following us, government, that we all agree with. And then the search issue, of course, we're going to highlight that again. And then we've got an important on the NVIDIA model that specializes in generating synthetic data. And then everything else we have rated as optional. Any other closing announcements before we leave? No. Okay, everybody, have a great week. But of course, we'll see you again tomorrow as we see you every day. Have a good one, folks.